The question every self-employed person has: how much do I set aside for taxes? Find out next in this video. Hey there, I am Alison. I'm a CPA in private tax practice. Welcome to my channel. And my channel this month is out at the lovely Lake Jocassee, favorite camping spot of my family. And it is so appropriate for this topic because we're talking about your side hustle and your taxes. So, or even your primary hustle if you're self-employed and your taxes. One of the blessings of being self-employed is that you can choose to go camping at the lake and take your work with you, as I have. And your kids can play in the lake in the morning and they can play solitaire in the afternoon while you do some work. It is a treat. Or you can work while they nap. But one of the downsides is trying to figure out your tax burden. So let's just start with the high notes. Taxpayers are subject to federal tax, FICA tax, and state tax if your state does tax. Some states like Florida, Tennessee, states like Texas, they're not subject to state tax. But it almost seems like it washes out anyway because you pay more in sales tax. But as a self-employed person, you pay, believe it or not, both the employer and the employee portion of FICA. When you're a W-2 employee, your employer pays half of that FICA, so 7 and some odd %. And you pay the other. But you pay that already, it's part of your net. So when you get your paycheck, you've never seen it. You remember that first time you had a job and you got that check and you're like adding up the math in your head. Yeah, I'm making all this money, and you get your check and you're like, wait, what? Well, FICA is part of that. It's not usually federal withholding that really gets the student. It's the FICA, and they go, wait, huh? So you have to anticipate that. But know that those taxes are calculated on your net income, not your gross. So let's say you made $40,000 as a self-employed person. That $40,000 may not be all subject to tax. If you had overhead costs, if you had home office expense, if you had vehicle mileage, if you were doing DoorDash and you had vehicle mileage, we've got to take all that stuff off first before we calculate your tax. So taking that and saying, okay, so I'm in an incremental bracket, plus my 15% FICA plus my state. Most taxpayers with a side hustle, I usually quote them about 42% to set aside, but not on the gross. That's only on the net, and that's the hard part, trying to figure that out. So making that adjustment can be difficult. Plus, you have to consider that you might be eligible for certain credits. For 2021, the dependent care credit has gone through the roof. It has really, it was something that Trump campaigned on, expanding the dependent care credit. And I don't know why it didn't get through, because it had bipartisan support. But it did not pass until during COVID. And now more taxpayers can take credit against more dollars that they've spent on daycare and childcare. So you'll have those things to take into account. If you're a lower income person, you might have the earned income credit. The general rule of thumb is to pay enough tax in to avoid penalty. To start there, that's your number one. If you're not going to ask a tax professional for help, which I really, of course, advise because I am one. So, I know the complexity of it and how it can be really confusing for people. But if you're going to start and try and do this yourself, look at your last year's tax return. Make sure you have paid in as much as your prior year liability. Now, that's not your bottom line number. That doesn't mean I prepared my taxes and I owed $500. No. That's not your tax liability. That's just the reconciling number. You have to find your total tax liability. Plus, you have to back out from that however much your spouse had withheld or you had withheld from a W-2 job to get to that, to back into that number. So take a look at your last year's return if you can determine from that. Figure out what your total liability was. See how much you might have already contributed this year or your spouse contributed this year. And then that number is a potential starting place for you. Now, if you earned more self-employed or on your side hustle, then you might want to make a higher contribution. But that's just kind of to give you the brackets. 42% being the highest percent probably, and then that lower end of the bracket being the difference between your total prior year liability and what's already on hand or on deposit. Now, I will tell you this. If you are self-employed and you made more than $35,000 or you anticipate making more than $35,000, we need to talk about a possible S-Corp election. Because you know Elon Musk does not make his living on a W-2. And I know a lot of people get confused about it and why a small business would be allowed to take a dividend and be taxed differently. The why? Does it really matter? It's that you can't. So let's take advantage of it. And maybe I'll do another video sometime. And I think I actually have, and well, maybe not on the YouTube channel, but I've done it as a presentation for lots of different professional organizations in the past. So I do have like this whole YouTube, not a YouTube, but PowerPoint slide thing that I can do. But if you are in that range or anticipating being in that range, we do need to talk about an S-Corp election to minimize FICA. But until you get to that level, it's paying the Secretary of State and all these other fees and having to pay me, not worth it. Now, if you go to another professional, they're not going to tell you 35. They're going to tell you a lot more. Why would that be? Because they charge you a lot more to do the S-Corp election. But for what I charge, it's roughly about $35,000 is the point where you need to be in order to take advantage of that and see some tax savings, some cash flow savings. So I hope this content was useful or informative or helpful for you. I sure did have fun making it. If so, please do subscribe to my channel so that more people can see it. I would really appreciate it. And like and share it with your friends. Take care. Have a great week.